80s are over and the time has come to cover the final B-side from the Batman album. On this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, we'll be talking about Sex. The song, that is. And joining me on this episode is Ernie Wyles. Welcome to the show, Ernie.
Hey, welcome. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for joining me on this episode to talk about Sex from the Scandalous Sex Suite.
Mm-hmm.
You're a first-time guest, and and if you wouldn't mind, Ernie, telling the listener a little bit about yourself, maybe your background and your connection to Prince, I think that would be appreciated, not just by me, but by the listeners as well.
Sure. Well, I mean, I don't know how deep the listeners are as far as podcasts go. Some might recognize me from the podcast, the Prince podcast from Michael Dean. Sometimes I go by the name there, Day Dropping. So, that's me. If you've heard me there, then you hear me here. I usually have like a 1 to 10 score on the tracks when I go over them. And that's kind of what I'm known for there. As far as my connection with Prince, well, I mean, I'm 49 years old now, so I've been listening to Prince for a good number of years. In fact, I can remember lying on my tummy next to a big old record player thing that everybody seemed to have in the 70s and the 80s in their living room, and with my ear next to the speaker there, listening to radio. And one of the first songs that I remember hearing was a song called Little Red Corvette. Had no idea who it was or anything, but I really dug the beat. And I loved the song, and I would find myself listening to the radio hours on end on a summer day, waiting for that song to come back. And when I would hear the DJ talking about Little Red Corvette coming up, or his song Little Red Corvette by Prince, and I go, oh, okay, I got to remember that name.
Mm-hmm.
And it all pretty much started from there. Little Red Corvette back in, what was it, 82, 83, somewhere around
83,
there?
Yeah, 83.
And that was my first conscious listening to Prince. And I say it that way because then I would later find out that, hey, I also like some of his older tracks and didn't realize that it was him. And then later on, I would always find myself gravitating towards certain songs and didn't realize that they were Prince songs, like I Feel For You, Chaka Khan, or Manic Monday from the Bangles, or Sugar Walls from Shanice, and just songs that I just liked. I had no idea they were Prince songs, but I was a lot more attached to that sound. So I always dug that Minneapolis music sound from the early 80s. And I have to say, I picked the right one when it came to picking Prince as one of the major artists that I follow, because of how diverse the cat is. And I say is because in my mind, the music lives on, even though the person's no longer here. So I say is, but, I just have never looked back since. I've always enjoyed it, looking forward to new stuff. And the thing is, he's so prolific, there's always new stuff. So that's kind of my take there with Prince and my quick rundown history with him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, with his prolific nature in writing music really is a gift for those of us, that are still listening to his music and never really stopped, or even if we did stop, it was for a brief period, because then when we finally caught back up with him, it's like, well, I missed 10 albums. If you stop listening to him for 10 years, you're going to have 10 albums to listen to, to catch up. You got a lot of catching up to do if you take a pause in his, in your fandom, I guess. And
that is
anybody
true.
who is now still listening to his music is treated every so often with new stuff coming out of the vault. And so it's just never ending. And it's a great and beautiful thing for, us fam that really still like listening to his stuff, because we're spoiled in that way, I would say. Definitely spoiled.
Very true.
Not everybody has quite the deep vault of unreleased material that Prince does, so we've got a lot to look forward to, I still hope. Okay, so we're talking again about Sex, the song that was on the Scandalous Sex Suite, which, for those of you who might not remember, Scandalous Sex Suite was just another name for the Scandalous 12-inch release. Mm-hmm. Scandalous being the fourth release single in the United States from the Batman album, It received a 7 and 12-inch vinyl release, also on CD as well, and probably cassette. As you know, 1989 was a time when there was a multitude of media options. CDs, if you were in the know, tapes were more prevalent and common. Vinyl was starting to fade out, but was still being pressed in 1989. If you picked up the 7-inch for Scandalous, you would have gotten When Two Are in Love as the B-side, which was a song that was previously heard on Lovesexy the year prior, or the Black Album if you had the bootleg. But if you grabbed the 12-inch, you were treated to a whole suite of songs that were kind of inspired by, based off of the groove from Scandalous. You had the whole Scandalous Sex Suite, which is the Crime, the Passion, the Rapture. And then on the other side of that, you had this new composition called Sex, which thematically, of course, just looking at the name of the song, you know thematically it's going to fit in with the Scandalous Sex Suite, a song titled Sex. But, if you weren't sure, you might think it might be like some sort of remix or some sort of reimagining, but it's an entirely brand new song. What was your familiarity, if any, Ernie, with this song in real time? Or when did you become aware of this song?
Well, I became aware of it when I got the Scandalous Sex Suite, and getting that. See, where I live here, because I live in Southern California, way real close to the border, and back then I was still living here, and it's a very small town, and it's not the type of town where you're going to get a lot of the record stores, because there were record stores at the time here. They didn't have very much in terms of variety. They're just very mom and pop type of record stores. So they didn't have Scandalous Sex Suite. They would have Prince albums, CDs, and cassettes, and every once in a while the occasional single. But it wasn't something where you can go in and get a lot of the obscure mixes, the 12-inch mixes, or things like that here. So I had to special order this. And I got it right before Christmas in '89 is when it came in. And, I'd go in there, check every day. So is it here yet? Is it? No, not yet. Until finally it came in. I'd go riding my bike over there because I didn't have a license yet. And finally I got it. And that's when I first heard of it. I had no idea what tracks were going to be on it. I just wanted to get it because it was a Prince production thing. And so I got Scandalous Sex Suite. And that's where I first heard about it.
Nice.
But yeah, no, I mean, I back then it was a lot more difficult to get a hold of information. On print stuff nowadays, you don't have to look very far to get the info, but back then it was I would have no idea how to find out anything about it unless I heard something about it in a magazine or something along that end. I don't even remember how I found out about this particular release, but that's how I got a hold of it. Was having to order it and waiting around and waiting. Luckily, I got it before Christmas. It was released at the beginning of the month in December '89, but I didn't get it till like about the third weekend, something like that. So it's a few days before Christmas I got it. Early Christmas gift, I guess you could say, for that year in '89.
Yeah. Okay. So you were definitely on it, right away in 1989 when it was released. That's cool. I did not own the Scandalous Sex Suite back in '89, so it took me much longer, probably another 10 years or so before I finally heard this song. Because a lot of, for me, and I've mentioned this in other podcast episodes, the 90s were kind of a time where I wouldn't say I completely checked out, but I wasn't checking for Prince stuff quite as religiously as I did in the 80s or would later on. So the 90s were kind of like a lost decade. After maybe Symbol album, I was a little bit off the Prince train for a while. I was in college and listening to a whole bunch of different types of music, and his sound at the time wasn't speaking to me personally as much as it did in the 80s. But I came back around to it, and I really enjoyed this 12-inch, the whole thing, not just Sex or this the different versions of Scandalous, but the whole thing as a cohesive release. I think it was really cool how he did it, and just kind of had a theme, and he was running with it and creating songs. I don't know if he had that in mind when he wrote and recorded this song in the summer of '89, if he had this whole concept in mind, or if he just wrote it and then when he had the concept he's like, oh yeah, that song would totally fit on this. I don't know which came first, right? So interesting to think about. Let's see. Also, I wanted to mention that Levi Caesar Jr. is credited as a co-writer for this song. I don't know if you ever noticed that. It's not just co-written or written by
for the song
Prince.
Sex?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, that I didn't know.
Yeah, it's listed on Prince Vault as written by Prince and Levi Caesar Jr. So I learned something new when I looked that up, because I never really paid attention to the writing credits, and I don't honestly know if he's credited like that on the Scandalous Sex Suite. I should have looked at that beforehand. I didn't, because I have this on vinyl and also the CD single, but I didn't look at that because you know how sometimes credits were not always clear at the time, but then they've been clarified and more documented better later on. So I don't know if he was credited right there at the release in '89 or if it became later that he received his credit.
Yeah, I'd have to talk to Dwayne about that one.
Yeah, exactly, and be interested what he contributed to this song. Was it lyrics? Was it music? Not sure.
Yeah.
Were you aware, Ernie, that there was a re-recording or maybe a cover? I don't know how. Probably more of a re-recording, but also a cover potentially, depending on the definition, how you define it, of this song by a Dutch girl group named Lois Lane.
I was in just recently.
Yeah,
I've heard it. I looked for it. Found it on YouTube, but it's a live version, and you hear a lot of the instrumentation from the Scandalous Sex Suite version in it. And you know what? It sounds pretty good. Sometimes I don't like when people cover his songs, or unless he specifically gave it to them, and that's what we know. But on this one here, and he did give it to Lois Lane, right? And they recorded it, and I guess I would consider it kind of like a cover, because it's very similar. They didn't really change anything other than the her referring to herself as female, the female identification versus the male identification when Prince sings it. So he sang it as a male, because sometimes he'll sing songs and he'll do the vocal tracks on them as a female, saying, referring to himself like she and this and that, because the intent is that it's going to go over to a female singer. He didn't do that with this song, but when she recorded it, she referred to her as her or she, or I forget, somewhere in the lyric, there's a reference there, and it sounded good. I gotta admit, it's not bad.
Yeah, no, I listened to it not too long ago too for the very first time, because I wasn't aware of it until I started doing some research for this song, and I'm like, oh, okay, who's Lois Lane and what is this song? So I listened to it. There's actually also a music video on YouTube. I found the video, like the official release video by the band, and yeah, it sounds very similar. Like the music is almost identical, and I believe Prince had, like you said, given it to him, so they had complete authorization to use like original bass tracks from the '89 version. So it wasn't like they had to re-record it on their own like you would normally have to do in a cover. So that's why it's kind of like, it seems more like I recorded this, but it was a B-side, very, not very well-known song. I can give it to somebody, because this group, this Lois Lane group, they're Dutch. They're from the Netherlands. The song, they weren't a big popular band in the United States. It's not like he was giving it to like En Vogue.
I never heard of them until I looked into this song.
Yeah, me neither. And honestly, this song didn't really perform on the charts, even in Europe. So it wasn't like a big hit. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that because, listeners might be interested in checking it out for themselves or finding it on YouTube and listening to it and making their own coming up to their own conclusions on what they think about this song versus, the original Prince version and how it compares to them. Okay, so then I guess we don't really have much else. I don't have much else to talk about in terms of like the song's recording history. Not a lot is documented. It's kind of an interesting song because it received a cover that was authorized, and it was part of a 12-inch only release, so you couldn't get it on a 7-inch release, so kind of makes it even more obscure. It wasn't included as part of the hits and the B-sides collection. So it's not really one of those songs that is often thought about when thinking of Prince's B-sides. I don't think. I mean, I don't hear
No.
Sex brought up too often when people cite, the amazing 80s run of Prince's B-sides. But I mean, technically it's a whole new song. It's not
I didn't even know it was really a B-side. I always just thought it was just I gave it as much thought as its inclusion where it comes out in as a song like Violet the Organ Grinder. It's part of that mix. It's part of that group of songs of that maxi single, whatever it is. It's part of that, and there you go. It's kind of like a new song, and there it is, and enjoy it while it's there. And I kind of saw this song as that. But I will say, I had, when I saw that this song was on the Scandalous Sex Suite, I was immediately intrigued by it, by the song title, because I'm like, oh wow. There was always certain songs that I go, at some point we're gonna hear this, and I expected my mind to be blown, and that would be a song that's related to or specifically called God, a song that's related to or specifically called sex, a song that's related to or specifically called love. I go, when we get those tracks, because those are like main themes in Princedom, as well, that go out through that. So when we hear those, I'm expecting something to blow my mind. And of those three that I said, only one did. So,
which one?
God is the only one that did for me. That really made me like, whoa, okay, this is cool, especially the instrumental. I'm
a fan of Love from 3121. I like Love.
I like it. It's just I expected a whole lot more from a song called Love coming from Prince.
Sure.
And same thing here. With this one, I expected a whole lot more. When I got to go, oh, that's cool, but I maybe should have named it something else. I don't know.
I feel you. Yes. I mean, this is a fine song, but it doesn't blow me away either. But
yeah, it's not a song that should be called Sex coming from Prince. That's why I don't know.
Yeah. The theme of this song isn't like you hear a song called Sex and you maybe think that you're gonna get something. I don't know if you're thinking you're gonna get something really raunchy or something really taboo or explicit. But you don't really so much here. It's seemingly more about a song of Prince expressing how important sex is in a monogamous relationship.
Yeah.
Which, great. I mean, that's a great concept. It's a great idea, but it's a little tame.
I mean, if you'd have named the song Monogamy, then, okay.
Yeah.
But to name it Sex, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
It works. The title works in it. I get it. But it
fits in with what Prince was talking about in this time. Like the late 80s, he was really like Love Sexy On. He was seemingly really focused on monogamy and still focused on sex, but in a healthy relationship, one where there's trust and there's, a belief that you're engaging in this with the one person in your life that's going to be there forever. And like I said, monogamy is also super important to him in this time. So if this might have been released in 1981, 1982, we might have gotten a different version of Sex. But in 1989, he's still pretty onto these themes and these topics. I mean, he's about to film Graffiti Bridge here any minute now after this release. So we all know like that's a very spiritual movie and a very spiritual album. Love Sexy was very spiritual. So a song named Sex released in 1989, sandwiched in between those two projects, you're probably gonna assume you're gonna get something much less shocking, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I did, anyhow.
Yeah, for sure.
That was my expectation of it, but yeah, it was cool though. I mean, I like the song. Don't get me wrong, I do like it. It's as sparse as it is because there isn't that much going on with the song, but it's very danceable. It's a song that sticks in your head. It's an earworm type of song once you hear it, and it's one of those songs that, like you touched on earlier, it's one of those songs where people, when they've heard the song back before and then somebody mentions it now, they're like, oh, I forgot about that song. Yeah, it's a pretty good track. It's one of those type of songs, so
Yeah.
forgotten,
Yeah, I
but
think so.
not remembered, but not forgotten, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Okay, well, if you're ready to start going through the lyrics, let's dig in.
Let's go.
All right, so the very first lines we hear from Prince, he says, "So my name is Endorphin. I can make you happy, you see. I come from planet Venus and I'll take you there. You could be my ecstasy. The 80s are over and the time has come for a new proclamation of love and fun. Monogamy and trust is what I'm talking about. I'll give up all my lovers if you can make me shout. Oh." So I think like that very first verse of this song, you're already like, if you're expecting something really erotic and taboo, like I mentioned before, maybe something that's arousing, you kind of deflated a little bit listening to this very first verse.
A lot of it. Yeah.
Monogamy and trust is what I'm talking about. Okay. Again, these are very good concepts. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to rip on monogamy and trust in a sexual relationship with somebody else. I'm just saying, like, okay, well, this is safe. This is a very safe subject. It's a very safe concept. Mm-hmm. But the very beginning of this is kind of intriguing, where he's citing, like, he's taking on a persona of a new character named Endorphin. Mm-hmm. And we kind of understand endorphins are the reference to, like, the chemical release during orgasm.
Well, I understand that now, but I'll tell you,
sure.
I was 16 when this came out, so I hadn't taken chemistry yet. I didn't know what endorphins were.
You couldn't Google it.
I couldn't Google it. I had no idea what it is. I honestly thought that he was saying, "So my name is a dolphin." I thought he was calling himself a dolphin. And for years, that's what I thought he was saying. I go, why is he calling himself a dolphin? Then later on, when the track Dolphin came out, I go, oh, okay, it makes sense now. And it just qualified that misheard lyric. And then I thought, nah, that doesn't make sense. That's kind of dumb. And so in my head, I just morphed it around for it to be a lyric. So my name isn't perfect. And forever I hear it that way. Even when I hear it now, I hear it that way. Even though I know what the correct lyric is, I'm like, okay, cool. So now I know that his name is not Dolphin. It's not imperfect. It's Endorphin. And I think that might be the first time that you hear that in one of his lyrics. I know later on Endorphin Machine had it, but I don't think you ever heard that.
Having gone through all of his songs up to this point, I don't have any memories of him using the word endorphin prior to this song.
Yeah, so again, that was just not something. That's not a word that I knew. So it's not a word that I recognized. So when I heard it, I didn't hear that because I didn't know what that was. So, But yeah, you're right. It's like he's taking on a persona here with that name. So kind of weird.
Yeah,
but
yeah, and later in this verse, he says, "I come from planet Venus, and I'll take you there." So he's kind of giving us the impression that this character Endorphin is an alien of sorts, and of course that's emphasized in the second verse, and when we get to that. But also, I'm like, okay, if somebody coming from the planet Venus is typically used as a metaphor to represent for love, and so you're getting that kind of impression that love is an important aspect of this endorphin's sexual adventure is going to be like, I'm going to give you pleasure, but it's got to be coming from a love place, like a place of love, like the planet Venus.
And so I will say this regarding these lyrics on here, and you can most likely apply it to most of his oddball lyrics. It's an oddball lyric, this first chorus, or the first verse here. It's an oddball lyric set of lyrics, and when you just read it and you don't hear it in the music, it reads weird. So my name is Endorphin. I can make you happy. You see, I come from planet Venus, and I'll take you there. You could be my ecstasy. It reads funny, but what I usually think about now, and this is since his passing, you've had so many people coming out and within his circle who would not have spoken out before. And you get especially in my taste book, where she talks about certain songs would have certain phrases that her and him would have, that he would say certain things to her, and then or she would say things to him or do things with him, and not necessarily in a sexual way or anything, but just in general daily life things, and they would wind up in music. And so it wouldn't surprise me if weird lyrics like this might have been conversation between him and somebody who he was dating at some point. And he said, just maybe pillow talk or something, saying that, his name's Endorphin and this and that, and just doing that kind of talking with this girl. And then here it comes here. We have no idea. It's an inside conversation between him and whoever that girl was. But it wouldn't surprise me if all these weird lyrics are not as weird as we think. There is context to them. It's not just something like, oh, I need something to rhyme with this word. And then no, but you're playing around with the stuff. But I'm pretty sure that something like this was probably something that he lived or did with somebody. So that's what I was thinking about that this morning. When I was driving around, and I go, you know what? I bet that's why that lyric is so weird, because it's probably something that some kind of conversation he had with the female at the time. Maybe Kim Basinger, maybe still with Susanna. I don't know, but I could see that being a lyric, that something that he had said, a conversation, or maybe they had with him.
Yeah, certainly possible. I mean, that brings up a good point about how conversational topics or things that were mentioned just in conversations with others, if they had some sort of, I don't know, poetic attachment, they could be used as lyrics. Like most of us speak and talk in non-poetic language, like day-to-day conversations. We're not using this type of language to communicate with each other. And Prince, I think, sometimes would, especially with people that he was really intimate with, like his lovers and his girlfriends and stuff like that. So it's certainly possible. The other thing about this verse, that dates it, of course, is the line, "The 80s are over and the time has come." So that line wasn't changed for the version that was released by Lois Lane in 1982. And I guess it doesn't need to be, because 1982, the decade was only, over with by 2 years. So it still worked. Like if they would have released it in 1999 or 98, it would have been a little more odd, and they might have had to, or might have wanted to, make an adjustment there in the lyrics. But the 80s are over, the time has come for a new proclamation of love and fun. So again, I don't know if this is kind of him also closing the chapter on his career or his personal life, more like probably his personal life, maybe, where the Playboy Prince, in his mind at least, he was, because we all know that isn't exactly how it happened. Right. But maybe in his mind, he was thinking the Playboy Prince is, I need to close that chapter. 80s were a fun time. I became famous in the 80s. I was able to date a lot of women in the 80s. I had a lot of fun, but now the 80s are over. I'm maturing. I'm just starting my 30s. I need to start thinking of, settling down, potentially finding a mate, having this sort of relationship with them. Not to say like sex is going to be de-emphasized, because it never really was in his career. But certainly maybe looking at it from a different perspective, like the 90s are almost here. And then later on, we'll kind of understand a little bit more maybe why he was thinking this way. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but there's a couple lines later in the song that kind of pinpoint maybe some fears that he had about living a lifestyle that involved a lot of casual sex. So he might be thinking of saying this and saying, to himself, or maybe just as a general comment, like we as a society maybe need to be thinking of sex in a different way. It's thinking of it from a standpoint of monogamy and trust, as he mentions in the same verse. I'll give up all my lovers if you can make me shout. So basically, like, I don't need a whole bunch of other people to please me, as long as I have one person that, can do it for me. Yeah. Do you get anything else from this verse, or should we move on?
from this verse here, well, I I always thought it was kind of funny that well, I agree with you in terms of him kind of not dismissing, but putting to bed, as it were, Rude Boy, or from DMSR days, with this by saying that those 80s are over and it's time for a new proclamation of love and fun. A new proclamation. It's still love and fun, but there's some new rules involved here now. Then he describes what those are, and what's that new proclamation? It's about monogamy and trust. That's what he's talking about now. That's the new groove. But it's funny that the following line right there is, "I'll give up all my lovers." Well, he's not very monogamous now, is he? If you can make me shout. So otherwise,
and if you can't make me shout, I'm not giving up all my lovers.
Right. Otherwise, he won't. I mean, how monogamous is he really? You know what I mean? Yeah. He's still holding on. Still hold on to that Rude Boy thing. Hey, you know what? If you're it, then I am there. I guess that's what it is. If you're it, then I'm there with you, just you and me. If you're the one. You know, and maybe he's exploring the idea of finding that one with this song, and this is what he's saying. You know, if you're the one, then I'm gonna drop all my other day-to-days, as you could say, and you're it. Yeah. You're it all week, you know. I can talk about the next week, but you're it all this week anyhow. So
definitely. Yeah, I think that's pretty likely way to interpret that.
I mean, he was still dangling Susanna here and there, and like I said, he was obviously had Kim Basinger and
Anna,
who knows who else?
Anna Garcia. Yeah.
That's right, Anna Garcia. That's right.
Was around this time too.
Anna Garcia.
Yep. He knew how to find the beautiful women.
He had a good eye. He had good eyes. He had, 20/20 vision. Let's put it that way.
So after this verse,
that's 2 10s per eye.
20/20 vision, 2 10s. Yeah. So after this verse, he does a little bit of a fun way of defining sex using acronym. S is for scandalous, E is for exciting, X is for adults only. Let's do something frightening, and then that leads right into the chorus. Sex, can't stop feeling, baby. Can't stop the feeling, baby. Nobody should. Sex, anything that's dangerous has to be good. So yeah, the acronym is, he only really does that, I think.
This is the only time? The one time?
I think it's the only time. So scandalous, using S's for scandalous, ties it back to the theme of the Scandalous Sex Suite and the single that maybe inspired this song. E is for exciting. That's pretty self-explanatory. X is for adults only. You have to assume that means like XXX or X-rated. And that's something that should only be, if we're talking like legal adults participation, not to say that teenagers don't have sex, but if we're talking about that, we have to keep it legal. Talking only the adult perspective, and also that he's only going to pursue this with adults. Let's do something frightening. So I don't know if he means frightening from the standpoint like something freaky, or if he means frightening meaning like let's do something frightening like monogamy. Ooh, scary thought.
You know what? I could go with that. I kind of take it like that. It's very easy to just go and assume that it's some kind of freaky deaky stuff when he's saying frightening. I think, and really giving it thought, that it's more a fear of the unknown of a concept like monogamy. So let's do something frightening, as in let's take this leap of faith here and to something that we may not, that we don't know what's going to happen. That's how I take that lyric. Let's do something frightening. It's not necessarily let's do something that's going to scare the hell out of you in terms of something sexual that we're doing, and no, it's not that. And that, but it kind of is. I mean, because obviously the sexual aspect of it is included, but the real fright is the idea of just being with one person and not knowing how that's going to work out. The unknown, the great unknown. Then.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's how I interpret it now as well. Sitting down with it and thinking about it and thinking about how it relates to what I believe the themes of this song to be. That's how I take it as well. Anything that's dangerous has to be good. And the use of the word dangerous here, I do believe is intentional and does have ramifications in terms of like, and again, I don't want to get ahead of myself because there's a line later. It almost feels like a throwaway line, but it's much later in the song, and we'll tie back the danger aspect here in a little bit. Okay, so then the second verse, he kind of ups the ante on this whole alien visiting from the planet Venus. He says, "Now I'm the type of alien who knows just what he wants, but you're the type who plays in the trees. You got it, maybe that's why you float. I climb 1,000 trees if I have to, but baby, I'm warning you, one of us is going to end up on our knees." This verse is a little bit strange to me. The metaphor that's being used about playing it, or the double meaning potentially of playing in the trees and end up on your knees, is intriguing. Like the whole tree part, I wasn't sure how to take that at first, unless it meant maybe playing hard to get. So playing up in the trees is like trying to escape, playing hard to get. Honestly, Ernie, I'm not sure.
I have an idea as to what he might be meaning by that, because I was thinking about that too, and I go, what the heck is he referring to, like monkeys or something? And then I don't know, man, that might sound kind of funky if you say something like that. You're bordering on being rude. Say something like that. But I think what he means about that, because I was thinking, okay, well, who plays in trees? Well, kids do, or in other words, people of a kid like mine, or somebody who's young or green. That are you the type of plays in the trees? Are you a young buck? Are you somebody who's young-minded, inexperienced? Because I'm the type of alien who knows just what he wants, but you're the young one who's not quite sure, and just kind of playing around, playing the game. That's how I take that one. You're the type who plays in the trees. In other words, you're just very child-minded, or very immature, I guess that's the right word. Very immature. Because that's how I say it. It implies youth, because it's kids who play in trees. Adults don't play in trees now. Adults who know what they want, they ain't up there in the trees playing around. But you play in trees. You're like a kid, man. You don't know what you want, type of thing. But the next line, I see how it reads. I hear it differently. And I wonder if in this case, I was way wrong with the endorphin one, right? I was way wrong with that one. But this one, what I hear on that, and I think it works better, and because we got to take whatever's written out here as this is what was the lyric is. But I always, because he what's the word? He records 2 or 3 different. He layers his voices on these, and they're off just a little bit, so it's kind of hard to understand what some lyrics are sometimes. But he says, "You got it. Maybe that's why you float." I don't know. I'm not cool with the word float. I've always thought that the word there was flaunt. And if you hear it, it kind of sounds like that. And I kind of go with that. You got it. Maybe that's why you flaunt. In other words, yeah, you're a little kid, but you know what you got. And you're just kind of showing it off. And so I've always taken that to be the word there, because float, what? Huh?
It doesn't make much sense.
Doesn't make much sense. Maybe that's why you float, because you got it. You got what? Big old titties. You float. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, right? It doesn't. It's silly. You have big boobs, big butt, and that's why you float, because you got it. You got that. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense like that. I mean, it could be in the Prince world. It might be that, and maybe that's what he said. Maybe that's a line that he used back in the day. When he would talk to folks, maybe that's things that he would tell them. But I think flaunt works a little bit better here. I don't know what you think about that line.
No, I think so. What I'm going to try to do, and it's so hard because if you try to Google Prince sex lyrics, you're just going to get like a whole bunch of lyrics that Prince mentions the word sex in, which is a lot. So I'm trying to, because there's multiple websites out there with lyrics, and I'm curious if one of them is a pretty solid one. Okay, so I'm looking at a website that's called Moonbeam Levels for You, which is...
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
it's a good one for lyrics. And my problem with this website is they use the same kind of language that Prince does. Like they use the for I, they'll put the symbol of an I in there. They use the U's, the letter U, and the B, the letter B. So it just makes it harder for me when I'm reading to read it. So I don't always go with this website first. But now that I'm looking at it, and guess what it says here? It says flaunt.
Let me see. I'm in there right now. Was that?
Yeah, so
okay.
Moonbeam Levels for you says, now I'm the type of alien who knows just what he wants, but you're the type who plays in the trees. You got it. Maybe that's why you flaunt.
Well,
I'd climb 1,000 trees if I have to, but baby, I'm warning you, one of us is going to end up on our knees. So they're saying it's flaunt, not.
And looking at that, his name is still Endorphin. It's not Dolphin. Okay, all right. But that's how I always heard it. I always heard it as flaunt. That's why to me it makes more sense that way. The other float, I don't get it. I had to really stretch to make that word work. So flaunt.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So does that change anything in your mind in terms of the whole use of the word trees in this verse, knowing that likely knowing that he says flaunt here?
No.
Okay. Because he says you got it. Maybe that's why you flaunt, meaning I think I take that now. You got it, meaning like you got, almost like you got the look. Like you know you're the shit. You know that you have.
Right, because it could still, because if we put it in regular speak, but you're very immature, although you're hot, and you know it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the line would mean then.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that, and also that makes sense, because when I hear the word float, I'm just like, they're floating up into the trees. I mean, okay. When I hear float, I think of the movie It in the book.
I was gonna say that. Steve I'm thinking Pennywise. Yeah.
Yep. We'll all float down here. Like, that's not the imagery I want for the song called Sex. That doesn't work. Okay. We clarified there. Sorry, genius, but flaunt seems to be the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I like the double meaning one of us is going to end up on our knees. I just wanted to bring that up because, you can take that to mean a couple things. Of course, you could think of it as meaning like somebody's going to get on their knees to perform oral sex, or you could think of it meaning like somebody's going to be on their knees begging for more, or begging them, to do something or be with them. So there's a couple different ways to look at that line, and of course that's I assume that's why Prince wrote it, is because you can interpret it multiple ways, the dirty way and maybe the other less dirty way.
Well, I think it's either or, depending on which one of us is going to end up on our knees. If it's going to be Endorphin on his knees, well, he's going to be begging. It's out of desperation. If it's going to be her, it's out of conquest, to put it mildly. So
I like that. Desperation,
because he's saying a couple lines before that, I climb 1,000 trees if I have to. And I was like, I will go to your level if I have to.
Yep.
To get what I need. Which all right, but baby, I'm warning you, one of us is going up on her. In other words, something's going to happen. If we got to go to that end, then something's going to happen.
Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so then after that, we basically get a reiteration of the chorus. Sex, just can't stop the feeling, baby, nobody should. Sex, anything that's dangerous has to be good, just has to be. And then we get kind of like, maybe I'll call it an interlude, but he says, get up on a chair, baby, let me dance under your skirt. Everybody on the dance floor now, get up on the table now, let me show you how to flirt. Oh Lord, feels good. I like it, baby, when you touch me there. I like it, baby, when you let me touch you there. I like it, girl. I knew you weren't wearing any underwear. Baby, is it wrong that I want you so? I want you, baby. I want you now. And then he says sex. So here I just get he's just getting more worked up. He's explaining some of the things that he's going to do to her. Because at this point, you have to, if you're reading it like a narrative, he's managed to capture her from the trees, and Endorphin is got what he wants, and this is what he's going to do, or else he's trying to still convince her. And the whole part about letting dance under your skirt, and then he notices that she wasn't wearing underwear, so you have like a little bit of an upskirt kind of a view. So that's a little bit dirty, a little bit naughty, I guess.
Well, it's the whole that's the conquest part of the song right there. He's trying to get to her, telling her to get up on the chair so he can dance under her skirt. And everybody on dance floor now, that's just for the crowd or the listener. Get up on the table now, let me show you how to flirt. And then he's still talking to that girl. All right, so that's done. Now the act has begun, the sexual act or the physical act has begun. That's where you get the "oh Lord, oh feels good, oh feels good," and then right after that, he's already in the act with her. That's why he says, "I like it, baby, when you let me touch you there." In other words, I've touched you there, and I like it when you let me touch you there. It's already happened, and now I'm not just trying to get to you. I've gotten to you. You've gotten to me. Let's make it reciprocal here because it's one-on-one. So I've gotten to you, you've gotten to me, and I like it when you let me touch you there. So now it's happened. And it's happening. And then again, he reemphasizes that I like it, girl. I knew you weren't wearing any underwear because I know. How do I know that? Because I already touched you there. That's how I know that. See, it's already happened. And in just a few lines, you went from, trying to, laying the Mac down to try to get to the girl, and then putting your moves on her, and then the moves having been put on her, and then he just reemphasize it, baby, is it wrong that I want you so? Just that's more pillow talk.
Yeah.
During or after the act. Whatever the act may be.
Yeah, exactly. I do think it's very Prince-like, those lyrics. Like he's done that many times where he has explained and expressed, sometimes in explicit detail, the level of sexual interaction that they're going to have or that they're having. And it's usually about titillation, about turning the person on. It's less about his pleasure and more about her pleasure. It seems to be a very common theme here. And it's not the first nor the last time that we'll read lyrics about Prince doing something that's going to really turn his woman on. And this is what he's expressing here as well. So I'm going to read the next section. There really isn't anything much to talk about. It's just kind of Prince getting the crowd involved and getting some interaction from the listeners. Fellas, all the boys that know about the good things say yeah. All the girls with no underwear on say yes. We getting funky tonight. Sex. You'll peep this out. Fellas, I want everybody saying it on the one. Come on. S-E-X. Say it. And I'll repeat that. Come on. S-E-X. Keep that going, fellas. Come on. Ladies, back him up one time, and then you hear some more Prince vocals in the background. He's using his falsetto to to make it sound like he's got a bunch of women.
I thought that was funny. You get yourself a female to do that. It's kind of funny, but
yeah, I mean, I whenever he doesn't, like whenever he puts on a woman's voice to, when he has these call outs and these people in the crowd, the quote unquote crowd that they're supposed to be call and response, and he just uses himself. I think he was just too impatient. Like he wanted to get the song done. Nobody was around. Right. Like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it myself.
that's probably what it was. Yeah.
But you could definitely tell it's Prince saying this in his falsetto. SEX is the best. SEX is the best. Come on. And he says that again. SEX is the best. So this part is what I was referring to earlier, this very next part, not the stuff I just said. But the very next part is what I was referring to earlier when I thought that there was some commentary about the dangers of sex if it's not done safely or if you have too many partners. One lover, sex. I don't think you heard me. One lover, sex. Yeah. Two lovers, death. With it? Two lovers, death. That's some dark shit, man.
Yeah.
That's some dark shit. I mean, he's thinking of course, I take this to be the peak AIDS crisis in 1989, late 80s,
yes.
Where monogamy or not engaging in monogamy, not embarking in a monogamous relationship, and having a lot of unprotected sex with a large number of people could literally mean death. Where before I'm like, oh, oops, I got syphilis. We'll just take care of that. But now it could mean death, and that's scary. And it was super scary for sexually active people in the 80s, I'm sure. I wasn't sexually active yet. I was pretty young.
No, I mean, yeah, no.
I didn't have to worry about that. But for those, in their 20s and 30s and adults that were used to a certain way, like in the 70s and 60s, the free love movement, and now all of a sudden you got to stop all that because there's this disease that nobody seems to understand where it's coming from, or even if they do understand where it's coming from, there's no cure for it. So what are you going to do? You got to change your behaviors. It's the only option.
That's right.
Two lovers, death. So that's when he says dangerous earlier in the song, like something that's dangerous has to be good. It can be interpreted he's talking dangerous, meaning like you can become almost addicted to it, or anything that's going to release that level of chemical pleasure into your brain might be something you seek out more often than what is healthy. So maybe it could be perceived that way. But I also mean like something that's dangerous, meaning like something that could literally kill you if you're not careful, has to be good. What do you think, Ernie? Do you agree with that?
No, yeah, no, 100%. That's what I always thought. Even back then, I was thinking that that's probably what he was talking about, as far as getting some kind, not necessarily directly, directly AIDS related, and it could have been inclusive of that. But again, I was in high school during all that time, or junior high during all that time in the 80s. So I mean, that wasn't really something that I was aware of. I knew what it was, but it wasn't something that I was actively worried about, because it wasn't sexually active, so it wasn't something that I had to worry about in that respect. But I knew that when he was saying that it was dangerous and that you can get some kind of disease, or you can get AIDS or something, I think it was just all encompassing. It's dangerous to just be going around different people because you never know. And ultimately that's what the song's about. And it really drives it home. It just mentions it at the beginning, monogamy and trust is what I'm talking about, but it really drives it home here and towards the end of the song. And that's pretty straightforward. I mean, you don't get much more less Prince cryptic than this, pretty much. One lover sex, two lovers death. Yeah, that's what it is.
There's really, I can't imagine any other way to interpret that.
No, there is another way to interpret that. I don't know how.
He does it with as few words as possible. Like he doesn't even use.
And he repeats it.
He repeats it.
Telling you, I don't think you heard me. Yeah. So it's pretty straightforward. Like I said, this song is not the deepest of songs, and you think it would have been with the name like Sex. As I'm saying, as I go back to that, I expected so much more from this song. I get the meaning, and it's a smart meaning. It makes sense, but other than that, no.
Yeah. He even doubles down on that, on the theme of monogamy with one of the last lines of the song. You can be nasty with one love, but only one. So he says that towards the end of the song, and again, that is exactly saying what we've already just been talking about. The theme again is monogamy, and he really wants you to know it's okay to be nasty. You can still have your freaky sex if you want, if that's your thing. You can do whatever you want as long as it's with one person, and then there's trust between you, and it's consensual. But one person, man, pick that one person, do everything you want to do with that one person, and then see how it goes from there.
Yeah. Kind of thinking about it though, I also wonder if maybe this may have been something that he, because it would have been written afterwards, as kind of like an addendum to "I Want Your Sex" from George Michael. I know they had mutual respect for each other in terms of their musicianship and music musicology, I guess you could say. They respected each other in that end. I know George Michael definitely respected Prince on that end. But they're very similar themes. Very, very similar themes. His was about monogamy as well. And it struck home with him a lot more, being a gay man, that he, wanted to drive home the idea of, monogamy is just one love, to the point where, well, MTV forced him to do it, to put that little blurb where he would talk about the song at the beginning of the video. I don't know if you remember that back then on MTV, where he would have to explain it, that it isn't about casual sex, it's about monogamy. And as if, I don't know, man, if a song like that, if you can't listen to the lyrics and understand the lyrics on that one, then I can't help you, because that's exactly what that song was all about. And his line on that one was almost as succinct as Prince's here. He's sex is best when it's one-on-one on that song. And here it says, again, one lover, sex, with Prince. It's very straightforward. Now, I always think that maybe they were like hand in hand, shaking hands type of songs, those two songs. Prince's Sex coming out later. But
the 80s were pretty conservative when it came. I mean, in many ways they weren't, but when it comes time to talk about sex in music, the 80s were actually pretty conservative. Like, these themes are very conservative.
Yeah, unless you're Two Live Crew, then
Yeah, right. Well, then they had to go the opposite way. Then in the 90s, or towards the end of the 80s and into the 90s, then rap picked up the baton. It's like, well, if you guys aren't going to talk about nasty shit, we will.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We got it from here, guys. Don't worry about it. All right. Well, I don't have anything further. I think, again, like we both said, we've covered the song. We've got the lyrics down. We kind of understand where Prince is coming from here. He says it right up front, and then he just uses the rest of the song to kind of prove his point and explain and give us, as the listener, more ammunition. Like, cool, sex is still great. The guys, don't worry about it. Like, monogamy sounds boring, especially if you lived during the 60s and 70s. But for all you young cats growing up, and just starting to get into sex, this is where I think your head should be at. You shouldn't be thinking, I'm going to go, bang, a new person every other day. You should be thinking, like, find the one for you that's going to, match your personality, match your desires, somebody that you're attracted to and is attracted to you equally, and you can have a great sexual chemistry and have a great sex life. And it doesn't have to be something that, you can't do with this person. Like, there should be no secrets. There should be no holding back. If you can both be honest with each other, and there's the trust part again, if you can both trust each other and be honest with each other, do whatever you both want to do, and don't worry about how they're going to think and feel, but just do it with that one person. And sex can still be great, guys. Trust me, I'm Prince. I'm telling you, sex can still be great with one person. Right.
Space it out. Don't have 3 or 4 in one day. Go one this week and one next week. That type of thing. But if you're gonna be with one. No matter if it's just, for a short period of time. That's kind of, that's how Prince did it. So
yeah, serial monogamist. I've heard that term used to describe him.
Yeah.
Very fitting.
Very fitting.
Okay, so Ernie, do you have any final thoughts on the song or anything else that you don't think we've expressed?
No, not really. Again, I like the song. It may sound like I'm kind of downplaying the song or anything. I really did like the song. I think it's an earworm type of song, and I had to reemphasize that I just expected a whole lot more from it, from the title, and versus what we actually got. I thought it was going to be a lot crazier. I think, like you said, had this been recorded a few years earlier, I think and for all we know, there is a song called Sex, or recorded earlier, completely different. Wouldn't surprise me. And that's probably the one that I thought I was going to hear. And it's probably still in the vault somewhere. It would not surprise me one bit.
Maybe, if that's true, maybe someday we will hear it.
That would be neat.
It definitely would be. Maybe a Dirty Mind era. That'd be cool.
That's where it would
we already got 1999, and it wasn't on there. So
Nah.
We got Vagina off 1999 Super Deluxe, but we didn't get a song.
And that was so. And that's another one.
Yeah.
You know, if you're gonna throw another one word type of song, well, man, imagine a song called Vagina. Woo, man, it's gonna be crazy. What you gonna be talking about? And then you hear the song, you're like, oh, okay. It was very cool though. Very cool. You know what?
Yeah.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
For you. Yeah. From stuff that has officially come out since his passing, what's been your number one? What is your most favorite vault track of the ones that have come out? The one that really stuck out with you? Like, oh crap, that's cool.
Does it have to be something that I've never heard before prior to it coming out?
It could be something you've heard before, but when you finally heard it, you're like, yeah, because it probably would have been sounded better.
Yeah, I mean, I'd heard the Computer Blue Hallway Speech version before it was released off the Purple Rain Deluxe in 2017. Yeah. But anything Purple Rain related, I'm going to be just fawning over because that was my favorite Prince album for so many years. It's maybe tied for first now with 1999. So anything Computer Blue, and I love the extending that song out the way it was extended. I had never heard We Can Fuck prior to that release either. I had heard, of course, We Can Funk, and how Prince had, taken that song and made it a little more, I don't know, maybe a little less explicit. A
little bit more commercial.
Yeah, a little more commercial. Thank you. Yeah. But I really enjoyed that. So I think those two combined. But there's songs that were released off of Silent Times in 1999, Super Deluxes, that were revelations to me as well. But I keep going back to those two because they're like epic, long songs with, almost like they're movies. They tell a story. They go a whole bunch of different places, musically, lyrically. They're just truly epic songs, and that always proved to me like those songs are not songs written by a quote unquote pop artist. Like I don't believe Prince was a pop artist.
No,
artists don't make songs like Computer Blue. They don't make songs like
in their wildest dreams could they do that. That's reserved for some crazy groups like the Beatles or the Beach Boys who would do something wild like that and something experimental and go crazy that way. With that, they were trying to compose things, not necessarily make a pop hit. Yeah, that was not the priority. And you're right. I have to agree with Computer Blue. That's one of my faves. I have Computer Blue and. Because I've always wanted to hear it and finally got to hear it, Cosmic Day. And
sure.
But yeah, but Computer Blue, whoo, man, that song, I can't hear it any other way. I can't hear the regular version. I always consider that particular song, I don't want to go on a big old tangent on this, but that song as it's presented on the original album, to me was just the first section before you hear Darling Nikki. It was a lead in into Darling Nikki. That's how I thought about that song. I didn't think of it much more than that. But when you hear the whole thing and you really take it in, now that is a song to dissect. That is just wild beyond belief as far as what's going on in that song. It's so incredibly deep, and it's a shame that didn't get played out in the movie, because that would have been, you would have gone into deep psyche on the kid with that song.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It goes real deep lyrically. And so for any listeners listening to this episode that haven't gone back and listened to my Computer Blue episode, do it because I cover the Hallway Speech version, because there's just, for me, there wasn't enough lyrics in the original album released version. So I wanted to cover the whole thing because it truly tells a story. And so go back and listen to that episode if you haven't. That
album release version is a terribly neutered version. And that's really the best way for me to describe it.
I get why they did it, but it's unfortunate.
Unfortunate. It was a result of editing, but an unfortunate result. When you know what really lies there. It's like the whole life and lifeblood of that song was taken out. To make it an intro song basically, and but anyhow, that's how I was curious as to what your number ones were for the vault stuff so far.
Well, thanks for asking. I appreciate it. Yeah, so far there's hopefully more to come. All right, Ernie. Do you have a social media presence you want to point anybody to that's listening to the episode? Want to check out what you're up to?
Yeah, you guys can hit me up either on Facebook or Twitter. I'm under this pretty much the same. Look me up under Ernie Wyles. That's ErnieWyles. You'll find me there. And either one, hit me up, guys. I'm very open to talking about Prince or anything, and I kind of know my stuff when it comes to Prince stuff. I'm pretty good with it. So hit me up on it, and we'll chat it up.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks, Ernie. Much appreciated you being on the show. Great having you as a new guest.
Yeah, would love to do it again sometime. Because I like the musical breakdown, but I really am big at listening to the lyrical content of the song. And some people are just the opposite. They go for the vibe of the song, and I think that's important. But the lyrics are especially important. Unless it's an instrumental, then who cares? But other than that,
exactly.
But other than that, I mean,
obviously, I agree with you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can find the show on social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Also, PressRewind.net is the website that I use to host the show. You can find it on all other podcast catchers as well. Got a Discord. So if you like talking about Prince on Discord, you can find the Press Rewind Discord links in my social media profiles. So check it out there. And until next time, thank you very much and goodbye.